Ms. Lyons, it is your claim that the defendant from whom you rented a room has some of your property and also assaulted you. The defendant says that that never happened. He has none of your property. He's got a cross-complaint. His cross-complaint alleges that you made allegations against him of assault, and they were false allegations. In addition to that, he says that you were late in some rent and you stored your stuff in his house until February, and he wants you to be responsible for making whatever room you had unavailable to anybody else because your stuff was still there. It is clear you didn't pay rent for the month of February. Is that correct?
For the month of February, no, ma'am.
Was your property there?
Yes.
Month of January, did you pay rent?
No, I didn't live there in January.
Your property was there?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you were there. Your property is there, you're there.
Okay.
Now, you moved out in December, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you pay rent in December?
I paid rent until the end of December.
When did you pay rent?
The end of November for December.
And had you paid November's rent?
And I have paid November's rent as well.
And you have proof of all of that?
I have a canceled check for November, but the defendant would not allow me to pay him with a check. He always demanded that I give him cash.
That's all right, you get...
This courtroom starts normal, but quickly turns tense when a tenant accuses a landlord of assault and withholding her property. Then Judge Judy immediately spots problems in the unpaid rent story, forcing both sides into a heated financial dispute from the very first minute.
A receipt when you pay somebody in cash.
Yeah, but I asked him for the receipt, ma'am, and he wouldn't give it to me.
Now, I want you to tell me, you were there for a relatively short period of time. You found this room how?
On Craigslist, ma'am.
And you moved in when?
The end of September.
So you moved in October 1?
Yes.
And you moved out on December what?
December 22nd.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding your moving out.
Your Honor, I rented a room from Mr. Yoder.
No, I know that you rented a room from him. Got that.
Okay.
Now we're up to December 22nd when you said you moved out. Now I want you to tell me the circumstances, because you just told me you were paid through December.
Yes, ma'am.
You said you paid your rent in November for December. He says that that is inaccurate. But if you paid your rent until the end of December, I want you to tell me the circumstances surrounding your moving out in December.
Mr. Yoder became very verbally abusive to me and would just fly off the handle at any given moment. There was no...
Now things escalate as a tenant explains why she suddenly fled the home despite claiming rent was already paid. She describes verbal abuse, constant hostility, and a living situation that became so toxic she says she escaped with only the clothes on her back.
Quiet enjoyment of the property for which I was renting, and it had escalated to such a point where I felt for my own safety it was best for me to just leave, and I basically left with one bag and the clothes on my back.
So let me understand this. When you say he became verbally abusive, that was why you decided to leave?
No, that wasn't the only reason. Shortly after I moved into the house, I was told that he was going to have his ex-wife and child come live in the home, but he forgot to tell me that the ex-wife is bipolar and an intravenous drug user. And honestly, I'm so glad to see that person in the courtroom, because it really took a toll on me just being able to enjoy the space that I had rented at that stage of the game.
Just a second. So that the configuration of the household changed and you weren't happy with that?
Drastically, you know.
At this point, the case takes an even stranger turn. The tenant claims the landlord secretly moved his ex-wife and child into the house, creating what she calls an unbearable environment. Then the courtroom grows uncomfortable as shocking insults and alleged verbal attacks are revealed in front of Judge Judy.
Staying up late at night, it was just an insane situation.
That I understand. Now, when you say he became verbally abusive to you, I want you to tell me exactly what he would say to you.
He would call me a stupid, and you're a stupid, and you know.
Those aren't nice words, and I wouldn't want to.
I really would not like to repeat anymore.
When you decided to leave,
yes, ma'am,
had you told him that you were leaving?
I told him that if he did not stop with his craziness, that yes, I was going to leave.
Okay. And did anything specifically happen in December? Any event, or did you just decide you had it?
He had gotten, as I said, very verbally abusive, and he almost hit me at one point earlier in the game. And at that stage,
what do you mean earlier in the game?
Before I had left and came back. So when we had that altercation, he was in such a state that I felt afraid for my life, basically, and left. And I left with one bag and the clothes on my back.
And when did you come back for your things?
I believe it was December 22nd.
You said you left on December 22nd.
Well, on December 22nd, we had this disagreement, yes. And because of it, I left. And
Okay,
the police
then
were
I'm
called.
asking you, when you came back for your things,
Yes, ma'am.
what date did you come back for your things?
I came back for my things on January the 2nd.
So between December 22nd and January 2nd, where did you stay?
I was living in a shelter for women,
Which one?
Comitis, shelter for women.
Will you register there every night?
As Judge Judy immediately presses a tenant about unpaid rent, missing property, and a disputed living situation. Now things escalate when contradictions start appearing in her timeline of where she stayed and when she moved out.
Yes.
You hesitated for a moment. Will you register there every night
I was
between
reg-
December 22nd
Yes.
and January 2nd?
Yes, ma'am. And the reason I hesitated for a moment is because it's a lottery system to get a bed in this shelter. And so some days you get in and some days you don't, depending on where you are in the lottery.
I ask you these questions, Miss Lyons, because the one thing that you said to me in your complaint was, which I would have, if I were telling the story about what happened and why I left, you said, on December 18th, Ron slapped me so hard in the face, he hurt his hand. I was really scared, so I immediately left with an overnight bag, leaving all my personal property there. Now, I must tell you, Miss Lyons, that I gave you every possible opportunity to tell me about that assault. I asked you 2 or 3 times to describe what he would say to you, why you left, what caused you to leave. You told me about his ex-wife moving in and problems that you had had with her. You told me how verbally abusive he was to you, how he called you names.
At this point, the landlord-tenant dispute turns more intense as the tenant claims verbal abuse forced her out. She describes a chaotic living environment and insists she left in fear, while the judge locks in on inconsistencies in her rental payments and cash dealings.
But the one thing that you didn't tell me that was in your first paragraph in your complaint was, he hit me so hard in the face that his hand hurt. You want to explain that to me?
Yes, ma'am, that did take place.
Well,
but I
how
was
come you didn't
sleeping-
tell me about that first?
Because
I gave first.
Ma'am, I was sleeping when he hit me. And so I didn't incur any bruising or anything like that. I didn't go to the hospital. It's not something that I have a hospital report for.
Okay, I know where I'm going. Now I have a little sense of where we're going.
Then the case takes a sharp turn as a tenant introduces a shocking allegation of physical assault. Judge Judy immediately questions why this claim was not mentioned earlier, exposing gaps in the story while the tenant struggles to justify the missing details. In the final clash, she returns with police escort collect her belongings, but even that moment raises more unanswered questions.
Now, you came back to get your property on January 2nd. You came back with the police, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the police escort you into the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you get your property?
Well, at the time, I only had my car, and I came to get interviewing clothes because I had to rent a U-Haul truck. Quite frankly, I didn't have the money to rent the U-Haul truck until some weeks later, and as soon as I had the money to be able to do it, I did.
Well, he's not a storage unit. You're not paying him,
But I had paid him through the end of December.
for which you have no proof because he says you did not pay him.
I do. I have a canceled check.
You have one canceled check for November.
Right?
I'd like to take a look at that check.
Yes, ma'am.
And see whether that check says December's rent.
It says November's rent, ma'am.
Right. And you paid him November's rent on what date?
On the 13th is when I gave him the cash. On the 31st, I gave him the $400.
Just a second. So that what you're telling me is, and what you told me, well, let's get to what you told me earlier about this. What you told me earlier about this was, I paid him December's rent in November. That's what you told me, because that's what the tape will demonstrate on this case. Well, that's a lie. You didn't pay him December's rent in November. You paid November's rent on This says October.
I paid him in October for November's rent on the 31st, the very last day of October for November. But I had paid him 3 months in advance in cash, and he insisted that I pay him in cash. But I saw that he was kind of shady after a couple months because he started trying to extort more money from me, and so I paid him with a check.
Just a second.
Judge Judy immediately challenges inconsistent rent claims. Now things escalate when the tenant insists she paid months in advance, but a timeline starts collapsing under sharp questioning and missing proof.
You just told me, Miss Lyons, that you moved in the beginning of October, end of September, so I said October 1st. You moved in October 1st, and you moved out on December 18th. 30 seconds ago, you just told me you paid him 3 months' rent in advance in cash when you moved in. That would be October, November, and December. And if you paid him 3 months' rent in cash when you moved in, why would you pay him again in October?
Because he was extorting money from me.
Oh, Miss Lyons, I don't believe you, madam, at all.
The truth of the matter is, I saw that he was shady, so I gave him a check. He would not give me any receipts, and I thought if I paid him with a check, then I would at least have that receipt. Well, he took the one check for that month, and then he said, I'll take it this time, but from now on, you pay in cash. Well, I had gone by then.
I don't believe you for a second. Because you seem like a very swift lady. And what you said to me a moment ago was, I paid him 3 months' rent in cash when I moved in. You moved in October, November, and December. Then 8 minutes ago, you told me you paid him December's rent in cash because he wouldn't take a check anymore. You gave him a check for November's rent in October. That's what you just told me. Now, were you mistaken when you told me you paid him 3 months' rent in cash up front?
No, ma'am.
At this point, the courtroom turns into a full contradiction trap. The tenant tries to justify changing payment methods, but Judge Judy exposes conflicting statements about cash, checks, and alleged extortion. The pressure builds as every version of a story starts collapsing in real time.
Okay. What items do you allege, madam, that he has that belong to you?
He has a whole list of items stemming from a computer hard drive to my designer bags that are missing, shoes, equipment, sleeping bags, tents.
Do you have any of her property?
We don't know what she's talking about. We've never seen this stuff.
He doesn't have any of your property. And you were there 2 times with the police, according to everything that I've read. He has none of your property. And since you didn't think it was important enough to talk to me about the assault, I'm dismissing that part of your complaint that talks about an assault. Now, you left your property.
Then the case shifts sharply into property accusations and credibility failure. The tenant lists missing items, but the landlord denies everything. Judge Judy quickly dismisses the assault claim, then rules against the tenant after multiple conflicting stories destroy her credibility completely. Final judgment is delivered and the case collapses in the landlord's favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.
According to you, in his house in December, January, and February, because you didn't go back until mid-February. Is that correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
That's correct. And your rent was how much?
$400 a month.
Then you owe him $400, $800, $1,200 in rent. Because if your stuff's there, you're there. And he doesn't have to wait for you to go get a U-Haul. Madam, it's my job to determine whether people are telling the truth or not. And since you told me 9 different stories in the relatively short period of time that you were there, I don't know what to trust and what not to trust. Judgment on the counterclaim for $1,200. Your case is dismissed. That's